Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the Public Services meeting today. Welcome to all of you who are here in with us, and Councillor Jackie Russell, who I know is on Zoom, and hopefully Councillor Joy Dennis and Sergeant Voigt, which will be joining us hopefully soon. Hello, Steve, as well. Councillor Oakley, thank you for coming in. So, yeah, about the LC public participation. Do we have it? No. Do we have anybody out? Any questions answered? No. Okay, so let's move on to apologies for absence. So I have apologies from the town mayor, who's on official engagement this evening, and deputy mayor, who is joining us via Zoom. I think that's everybody. Councillor Belty will be with us shortly. He apologises, he's running a little late. Right, on to item 3. I'd like to receive the minutes from the meeting held on the 2nd of September. I'd like to propose those minutes for accuracy. Could I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Councillor. All those in favour, for a show of hands. That's everybody. Thank you. Okay, Chairman's updates. So we start off with the railway station. We understand that work has started to put in the lifts for the disabled access. In order to facilitate the works, disabled spaces at the station have been temporarily suspended, and 7 disabled spaces have been put onto Fairbank Way. These are having to be monitored, as sadly Sainsbury's customers have been seen to use these spaces. With thanks to Disability Access for keeping us up to date, as sadly Southern have not provided us with the timescale nor the final plan, which is a shame, because that's quite a big thing happening in this, for instance, something we've been waiting a long time for, so something we would like to know more about. Dementia Cafe. Known Dementia have secured funding and will be opening a dementia drop-in cafe on the fortnightly basis in East Grinstead as of 2022. The venue is yet to be determined, but it will be welcomed wherever that does actually open. So great news for that one. Prostate cancer testing. Many thanks to the Lions, who had another successful prostate testing event. 516 men were tested on the 27th of November. And any results which need following up will be advised to them over the next few days. Huge thanks to the Lions team, who have supported our medical services so well with this and the vaccine rollout, and indeed also the taxi welfare checks. Thanks also to the Town Councillors A&T Committee, who granted free use of the Meridian Water for this to take place. I think we all know how important any testing in cancer is, so to have that happening. And I believe it was fully booked, wasn't it? 516 slots were taken, so that's great news. So well done, everybody involved on that one.
Chairman, I can give a further update on that. The results have now been issued out, and there have been 20 gentlemen who have now been asked to take some follow-up procedures, and they've referred to their GPs in order to get further advice and testing. So that's 20 men who were very grateful.
Yes,
for this testing.
20 men who probably didn't know. So that's great news. So well worth it happening, and thank you to A&T for letting them have the Meridian Hall. Queen's Wall. Officers have introduced our cleaning contractors monitor to involve estates. Monitor have advised that they are served as they service East Grinstead Town Council and Mid Sussex District Council public toilets. In this area, they are able to offer good price to Evolve. It is disappointing that the toilets are not yet open. there is a disagreement as to the S106 conditions as to when they are to be opened, before or after a percentage of the retail units are let. At this time, there do not appear to be any retail units let from the new side of the development. Thank you to Councillor Whittaker, who has been liaising with Evolve and trying to push them along. And thank you very much, Councillor. I know you've been really getting involved in this one. So, don't know if you've got an update.
Yeah, it's been very frustrating. I've gone hardball now, basically, because my patience has run out, and so the Mid Sussex District Council planning enforcement are involved. We're still liaising, Julie and I, working sort of hand in glove on that with Evolve Estates and their agent. They haven't been let. They are marketing. We've got a fair bit of interest in the fair.
They have,
yeah. But they originally told me that would be open in October. So I'm chasing twice a week now, and sort of up in the pace each time.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. Thank you for getting
so I'm hopeful. Julie's very kindly put Monitor in touch with them, so we should get a price. Yeah. So I'm hopeful it's going to be. There's got to be economies of scale there, obviously. So I'm sure a deal can be done to get them open. They're not huge toilets, but they are a facility.
It's another
on the car park.
Another facility in the town, which is gratefully received. I think. Exactly.
And if I could just add my personal thanks to the Lions, not only for the prostate testing, but for the diabetes as well. About a month earlier, and I know that Councillor Pavor and Maribel were instrumental all day in doing the blood testing for that. So it just shows again the huge amount of community support, voluntary community support that we're blessed to have in this town. Yeah, definitely. So thank you, Councillor Pavor, your wife, for all your help with that as well. It's, yes, it does show that we do have a great community spirit in the town, and people are willing to help and go that extra mile. So that's fantastic to see, and long may that last, and hopefully it will continue to save lives. Do we have any members' declarations of interest?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to declare an interest in item 11 as I work with the Queen Victoria.
Thank you very much.
The same as the work at Queen Victoria Hospital.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else?
Thank you very much, Chair.
That's all right.
To declare an interest, obviously, as a district and county councillor on some of the items on the agenda, and also with agenda item 11, I am the stakeholder governor at the Queen Victoria Hospital, representing West Sussex County Council.
Let's give a bit of an update later on. Councillor Belsey.
Thank you, Chairman. Just in terms of item 13, if the district council, I'm also the cabinet member that's responsible for the LC whips for Mid Sussex. So.
Thank you. Anybody else? No, that's everything. Okay, so we're now moving on to West Sussex County Council Children's Early Help Services. I'd like to welcome Councillor Jackie Russell here via Zoom, and I think she's got an update on all of her portfolio, so it'd be interesting to hear all of that. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, it's quite a bit to report, but I'll try not to take too long. So just to sort of set the context, we are now coming to the end of the second year of the Children's Services Improvement Journey, and that has been overseen by the government appointed commissioner and our partner in Prime to Practice, Hampshire County Council. And the first year was about laying the foundation blocks and the future plans for the service to build upon in order to move from an inadequate rating to good and beyond. And we've spent this year in the hard yards of it, really, implementing those plans whilst feeding back to Ofsted at each 4 monthly monitoring visit and to the Commissioner at each monthly improvement board meeting. So actually starting off with early help, that was one of the first elements of the transformation of the service that commenced in early January this year, with proposals for the redesign of the early help service going through scrutiny, out to public consultation in the spring, and back to scrutiny in the summer, with the final decision to implement the redesign proposals taken by the Cabinet in July this year. So the new model will commence in January 2022 and will operate both out of 12 family hubs that are strategically positioned across the county in areas of greatest need, and will also operate on an outreach basis, i.e. family workers will not be static in centres, but will go out and work directly with families. There will also be much stronger links into schools, and we will in time see the implementation of partnership boards in each locality. And the plan there is to include representation from across the piece, and that will be families, elected members, school representatives, health partners, and West Sussex officers, just to name a few. And as with any redesign, there's been an impact on a number of children and family centre buildings, as you've probably heard. But it's important to note that there's been no loss of access to services. And ironically, one of the biggest concerns that came out of the consultation was the loss of access to what are termed universal services, which are also known as early years services. And so there was some confusion between early years and just exactly what early help is. So early years are, health visitors, baby weighing clinics, that sort of thing. But these have always been available in the community via health partners, and that won't change. But West Sussex are actually under contract to provide our health partners with some buildings within which to deliver the Healthy Child programme, which is the early years developmental health checks. And Health have identified a further 10 buildings that they wish to operate out of over and above the 12 family hubs that we've retained. And I am very pleased to say that the Blackwell Children and Family Centre, which was recognised as surplus to requirements for early help, is one of the buildings Health have identified that they wish to remain in. And negotiations are now currently underway to make that happen. And once the contract negotiations are completed, Health will take over the building for the remainder of the contract term, which runs at present until the end of 2024. And then at that point, it will then again be renegotiated. So it's very good news for East Grinstead, and that the Children and Family Centre will become the centre for the Healthy Child programme. So our young families will be able to take their young children to that building. Moving on to social work practice. So the service are currently in the process of carrying out training with respect to our new social work practice model, family safeguarding, which works along similar lines to early help. It works directly with families using techniques such as motivational interviewing, which empowers families to find solutions to their challenges, as opposed to being a service that tells them what they must do. And like early help, the new practice model will roll out across the county in the new year, and it will consist of 26 multidisciplinary teams, which will comprise workers with specialisms in domestic abuse for both victims and perpetrators, mental health, social worker, family worker, and a team manager. Family safeguarding as a social work practice model was first piloted in 2014 by the Hertfordshire County Council, and is proven to reduce the number of police call-outs to domestic abuse incidents by some 60%, and numbers of children on child protection plans by 43%. The decision to adopt this model by West Sussex has Department for Education backing, and they have actually granted West Sussex funding towards its implementation to the tune of approximately £4.5 million over the implementation period. Moving on to our children's homes, we've now completed phase 1 of our in-house residential review, with 3 homes in the south of the county that were closed in 2018, now fully refurbished, with 2 of the 3 open and the 3rd just awaiting its Ofsted sign-off, which is due imminently. All 3 homes are refurbished to a very high standard, with our home for children with complex needs and disabilities being particularly breathtaking with respect to the facilities it provides children who are either there permanently or for respite. Phase 2 of our refurbishment programme will commence in April of 2022 and will focus on the 3 homes in the north of the county, who are all currently rated as outstanding by Ofsted as of last year. We also now have brand new provision for solo placements, which occur occasionally, which again is just awaiting the sign-off from Ofsted before we can actually use that as a registered placement facility. Feasibility studies are about to commence for a phase 3 of residential programme, which in time we hope will complete the review of our in-house provision and provide us with a robust in-house service that we can control, that will overall increase our local provision, particularly with respect to placements for our needs, whilst reducing our reliance on costly external placements, which can also be out of county. And similarly, with our foster carer review, As with our in-house residential provision, there is a real need to reduce our reliance on independent fostering agencies, which are very costly. And we're now taking steps to increase our internal foster care provision, which ultimately gives us more control and is better for our children. Phase 1 of the foster care review was implemented in April of this year and addressed the element of pay, with phase 2, which addresses the wider package of support and respite for foster carers, currently underway and due to be implemented in early 2022. Since the implementation of phase 1 of the new offer, we have already seen a significant amount of inquiries into the service with regards to becoming foster carers. But given it takes around 26 weeks to fully approve a foster carer, we won't see the full effects of this in terms of a shift away from independent to in-house foster carers until next financial year. And on to our social worker workforce. Prior to July of this year, and in a bid to create some stability in the workforce during what has been, undoubtedly an unstable time, the authority had offered a recruitment and retention package to social workers, whereby they were given a sum to remain with the authority for a set period of time. Recognising that this could never be a sustainable way forward for the service, this was replaced in July with a permanent, more competitive package that is in line with our neighbours and dealt not only with pay, but support and career progression. And this has so far been very well received, with 98% of social workers that were with us during the retention period choosing to remain. And we are now in the process of a significant recruitment drive and are starting to see some quality applicants expressing early interest in joining us. And I think that is indicative of the fact that they can see changes occurring within the service leadership, with the added attraction to them of the new social work practice model, family safeguarding, shortly to be implemented. In terms of our position with respect to going into a trust, in December last year, the Commissioner filed his report to the Minister of State, recommending a pause to the work being undertaken to direct children's services control away from the County Council and placed into a trust. Commissioner's view was that the pace with which change had begun should be allowed to continue pending further review in December 2021. Commissioner is due to meet with the authority shortly and will be submitting his next report to the Minister of State in January 2022, which will incorporate his recommendations with respect to whether or not to remove the option of a trust altogether. And whilst I'm not privy to his opinion at this time, having worked closely with the service and attended improvement board meetings, I remain hopeful that we can achieve this end, but obviously time will tell on that. Should we achieve this end, we will actually be the first authority in the country who have had a decision not only paused, but completely revoked. Some really good news. A West Sussex social worker scooped not only the overarching National Social Worker of the Year award, but also the award for Social Justice Advocate for her work in promoting diversity and cultural competency amongst social workers. And the chairman of the County Council will be presenting Vivian Okezi Tirado with a gift and some flowers from all members of the County Council at Full Council on the 17th of December. And really to conclude, obviously I've given you a lot of good news stories, because there are a lot of good news stories coming out of West Sussex Children's Services, but we're not out of the woods yet, and there is still work to do. We have 2 or 3 further Ofsted monitoring visits for a full inspection, which is likely to be in 2023. And whilst each monitoring visit produces a report so far that is more positive than the last, the fact remains there are still areas which are tough nuts to crack. And the biggest one probably being variability in social work practice. However, there will be a significant push in this area over the next year, which, coupled with a very robust quality assurance auditing process that we now have in place, gives me the confidence as Cabinet Member to say that the service are fully committed to ironing out that variability and instilling stability within the next 12 months. And that is ultimately the stability and quality of practice that will put children's services on a much more stable footing and ultimately provide better outcomes for our children and families. Thank you. I'm very happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Councillor. That was a great report, and I'm sure we can all thank you for such a great report and all the hard work you're putting in. Sounds like you're really gaining traction there, so well done. Do you have any questions? Councillor.
Thank you, Jackie, for a very comprehensive report, and well done to you for the last 2 years of incredibly hard work. So, thank you for doing such a great job and representing the town so well. You mentioned the 12 new pubs. Are any of them close or within East Grinstead, or are they all sort of secret locations?
No, they're not secret locations. They're actually placed in areas which, using the index of multiple deprivation in terms of greatest need, are placed strategically. So we have a significant number along the coast, along the coastal strip, where there are quite high areas of deprivation. And in fact, despite the fact that we are overall quite an affluent county, we actually do have some areas that are in the top 20% of the most deprived areas in the country. So there are around 5 in the Ada and Worthing area predominantly, and the remainder are spread out across the county. There are 2 in Crawley. There's 1 in Mid Sussex, which is down in Haywards Heath, and others that are, positioned just generally around the county. And the idea of them is obviously they are going to be family hubs, so they will have both family safeguarding, the early help, and some universal services such as health, and a youth drop-in centre, which obviously you can walk into. But the whole point of this remodel and this redesign is not to have to rely on walking into a building. And in fact, with respect to early help, one of the reasons for doing the redesign was because, as you'll probably know, during the pandemic, every single children's centre was actually closed, yet the requests for early help via online means still continue to come through, and we're at a record high. So early help doesn't actually need a building, and in actual fact, families that want early help don't walk into buildings. And one of the things that I was concerned about actually, and it is quite prevalent at the moment, is our young people and youth mental health, which is very, very high on our agenda at West Sussex at the moment. And I was concerned that our children would, wouldn't be able to have a facility to meet somewhere locally, to go and see somewhere locally. And that was addressed. So whilst there are the 12 hubs, a child from East Grinstead that would, may wish to have help can get in touch with West Sussex, and that can be, it's predominantly via schools, and West Sussex will come out and see that child. So there is actually no need for children or families to travel very far. The biggest concern of that redesign actually wasn't the early help service and whether or not it remained in a building or it left a building. It was actually the concern around potential loss of early years services, which are all the health services, which actually are available from our health partners in each community. And as I outlined in that report, West Sussex are under contract to provide the NHS with a number of buildings through which they can deliver the Healthy Child programme, and Blackwell Children and Family Centre will become that centre to deliver early years, which I think will allay, concerns with our young families.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions for Councillor? No? Well, thank you very much again from all of us and for that fantastic report. No further questions from us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thanks, Jackie.
Okay, so we now move on to an update from Councillor Dennis of West Sussex Highways. Is on Zoom. So welcome and thank you for joining us, Councillor Dennis. Over to you.
She is there. It'll just take her a moment to get her camera on, I'm sure. Here we go.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm supposed to follow the good news and the very positivity of Jackie. Let's hope we can. So what I thought I'd do is I put a presentation together. So bear with me. I'm going to try and share my screen with you, if that's all right. Apparently the host has disabled the participant screen sharing. Is there any chance you can? Is that Julie? Do you think you could?
I've just made you a co-host, so you should be able to do it now.
Super, thank you. And I'm just going to hope that I can do this. Yeah, there. Can you see it all? Can you all see it?
Not yet. If you share screen, and it should come up for us.
Is it there?
Here we go. Lovely.
Right, you've got it. Fantastic. Okay. I just thought I'd put some context in and then we could talk about some local issues for you. How does that sound?
Right.
I can't hear you all very well. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, we can hear you well, Joy. Thank you.
Fine, thank you. Just tell me if I'm shouting. I can't hear you guys very well at all. So I'm just I don't know how to measure my own voice.
No, we can hear you absolutely fine. So your volume is great.
Super. Great. So first, I just thought I'd give you a perspective on the roads in West Sussex. We have 2,500 miles, these are the roads by classification. It might quite surprise you in some respects. It might not others, but you can see what A, B, C, and our D roads are. And our D roads are really a lot of our what I call our city road, town roads, suburban roads. That probably gives you some sort of context, and also our lanes. Okay. And just to give you an idea of the programme of works across the county, just to show it is across the county. It's not done just in Chichester. Often people say, oh, it's all done in Chichester, but obviously not. And if you're probably aware, I am a county councillor for Mid Sussex as well, so I think I'd be the first to screen, wouldn't I? And then really about what we're delivering. In 2021, we had 228 schemes which were delivered. And we're programming this year 380 schemes. And in next year, we're looking, it's provisional, but provisionally about 553 schemes. So you can see an increase in capital spend there. And our ability. So just to give you a feel for what we're doing in terms of our outputs on the roads, because I know this is always the very important sort of perspective. Carriageway resurfacing, 26 kilometres. Sorry, there's a mix there between kilometres and mileage, I've just realised, apologies. Got 21 kilometres of footway and carriageway on the micro asphalt. The surface dressing about 17 and carriageway, the patching is nearly 11. So that gives you a feeling about, you know, a good sort of perspective on what we're doing. And then we've got our budget, our basic maintenance budget, to give you a feel. I thought you should have a look at this one as well and put it in perspective. It for 2021, it was 10 million, just under. And that's how it was split. And you can see where the safety repairs would be potholes. As you can see, other repairs going there. We've got the trees, we've got the winter gritting, bridge maintenance, and I'll come obviously to that one because it's quite an important one. Our signals are like our signals. It's obviously our traffic light signals, signs and lines, drainage, and the grass cutting. So that just shows you where that spend goes. And actually, we have been obviously putting some new frameworks in place. I'm sure you've heard from the other guys there that actually we've in the last year and two, we've put some new contracts in place, which actually has enabled us to actually start to reduce some of the costs per square meters compared to our previous contract, which has been really good news. So that's on the patching, the resurfacing and the micro asphalt. So some really big gains there. So we can deliver some more bang for our buck effectively. But then I thought what I should really do is discuss your local issues with you. And hopefully, I know these are sort of the bigger issues. So firstly, Imberhorn Lane, the A22 resurfacing that's scheduled to take place. I know there was a little bit of consternation that actually it didn't go right up to the county boundary and that it fell short. I did come up and look at it, and I'm with a couple of other things with Councillor Russell and with Councillor, is Ian Gibson there? No, he's not there, but with Ian as well. And looked at it and agreed that really we should get that done at the same time. I don't want to say 100% because I don't want to commit 100% because you never know what might happen. But I've spoken to our guys in Major Works, and they are reassuring me that they will do whatever they can. 99%, they are pretty confident that they will be able to go to the county line. So hopefully that's good news. So that's Imberhorn. Now, I've also had some notes about the A22 in terms of what's happening in Surrey County Council. And I understand that Surrey County Councils have a big A22 project that they're considering. And they're going to trial the use of new technologies to tackle some of the speeding, the congestion and air quality issues on the total A22 corridor between Purley and your boundary. And these interventions identified as part of the initial feasibility study, it will include green light optimized speed advisories, smart sensors to detect objects, impacts and road conditions, some air quality sensors, average speed cameras, etc. They're currently putting together a business case for a small trial, which will be further away from your much further away from your boundary. But they'll also look at some other potential interventions linked to the 5G rollout and those emerging around future mobility technologies. We've received a copy of that initial feasibility study report and details of the project. So we're going to look at that and see what implications they have potentially for us and what we can possibly learn from it if we don't know about it, but actually we can use that data and the work that they're doing to see what we can do as well. So I just thought I'd let you be aware of that too, because I know that's been in the round. And then thirdly, the other issue at this moment in time, which is around the St. Margaret's Loop. At long last, we managed to make contact. It's been quite a struggle, as I think that Councillor Russell will tell you. But the officers had a very good meeting with RPL and Highways England a couple of weeks ago to discuss the bridges and agree a way forward to complete the bridge assessments. They need to be, a very detailed inspection needs to be undertaken before they consider what remedial works will be required before the council, West Sussex that is, before a council can consider adoption and allow for any commuter sums to be evaluated. It appears that the RPL consultants have now undertaken all necessary investigation required to complete the assessments. But once we've received their reports, we'll be looking to plan a joint inspection of the bridges to be undertaken, unlikely to be done until now the spring 2022. It was a very positive meeting, and RPL said they would make contact with yourself to discuss land sale and acquisition arrangements. And so hopefully this is a really positive move forward for you. And I thought before I move on to the next one, I thought if anybody's got any questions on this particular item, or items, should I say?
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. That's really useful, and particularly I'm involved, and I know that you liaise very closely with Councillor Russell and Councillor Gibson as well, very positively, which is great progress in the Inhorn area. And obviously now you're probably aware that the Mid Sussex Site Allocation DPD Examiner's Report has now been published and effectively has allocated the two sites in Inhorn, in the Felbridge area. So there'll be around about 1,000 new houses planned and in the pipeline, some are under construction already. So obviously the traffic concerns at particularly the Star Crossroads, I know you're liaising with Surrey, but I certainly appreciate what you've done with Jackie and Ian, so thank you for that.
I'm sorry, but I'm really struggling, as you can tell, I'm leaning in. I'm really struggling with the sound on your end. I'm not getting everything.
If you can talk, if you can look this way.
Oh, Julie, that's fantastic. When you speak, I can hear.
Because I'm right by the microphone. The microphone is there, so if you speak towards the microphone, then that will help our guests on the Zoom. Please. Unfortunately, Councillor Dennis, they're looking at the screen because you are being projected down the side of the room, which means they've got their back to the microphone. That's the problem.
Yeah, I see. Don't worry.
I think Councillor Whittaker was just thanking you for the work that you're doing with Councillor Russell and Gibson, and that with the site allocation DPD being published, with the sites in Inverhorn being included, the work's going to become more important than ever, really, with 1,000 new houses around Inverhorn at the start.
Chairman, if I may as well, I just want to say thank you very much to Councillor Dennis, but also to Councillor Russell and Councillor Bennett and everybody who's been helping us with pushing the St Margaret's Loop project. It reports to the Amenities and Tourism Committee, but all of the councillors are very aware, and this has been something which was stuck for most of this year, and it looks like we might get some movement next year. So just a big thank you for helping us to move that along.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine the inspections is down to weather, otherwise it would have moved a bit quicker. But I can't imagine it being much fun trying to inspect bridges in the middle of frost. And
Quite.
I don't think we have any further questions at this stage, so if you'd like to continue, then we can maybe have some more questions at the end.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
If you'd like to continue, there's no more questions at the moment. That would be great.
Okay, thank you. And I just thought that I would just give you a feel for some of the initiatives that we're putting through, which will sort of, obviously, I'm sure that, you know, you've had lots of sort of concerns or worries or frustrations at times with highways. Who hasn't? So I just give you a feel for some of the things that's currently ongoing. So the first one is a line rental scheme. We've applied and we've received agreement for a line rental scheme by DFT, which basically means that the utility companies will have to pay to use the roads, which means that we can then pay for enforcement officers to go along and do 100% checks on the work that they're doing and enforcement of the quality of the work as well. And not only that, the signs, the traffic lights, etc. That I know that we spend forever, do we not, going back and saying the signage is not adequate, we need to change the lighting. That when I say the lighting, the traffic lighting, or the quality of the work doesn't look quite right, because at the moment our highway stewards are overwhelmed by it, and we can't get to 100% of it. So this is a way of getting utilities in and out as quick as possible, no messing around, and actually ensuring the work's done in a timely and quality way. And they'll soon learn. They will soon learn when they're paying. So that's, we're actually working with the districts and boroughs at the moment to get this in place before next new year, the next financial year. I would really like to be starting no later than the 1st of April next year. The TRO process and the CHS process, that is the traffic regulation order and the community highway scheme process, to me, frustratingly so slow. It seems as though it can take forever, and it does seem over complex. So we've had a TRO and CHS review. I believe that the TRO one has now been scrutinised and we should be making a decision on it soon. And the CHS one will be following fairly closely soon. So, for example, with the TRO one, we're looking at putting a rolling process in so that actually, you know, in reality, if there's no issues, they should be in within 7 months. And I think that's probably different. I think some parishes would say that'll make a change to 7 years, but I won't go there. I've also put in a road safety advisor, and the reason I've put that is we're going to have a road safety group, and we're going to be looking at numbers of road safety factors, and that will be from looking and reviewing our speed policies across the county. They'll be looking at our rural lanes and how we can give them make sure that pedestrians, cyclists and horse riders feel safer on our rural lanes. It's also going to be looking at education around road safety, looking at, you know, our current white lining policy. You know, when should we actually be re-white lining? So in other words, at the moment, it's around 80% derogation. Is that right in rural areas where there's no lighting? Should it in fact be when it's 60% derogated, or should that be different between urban areas and rural areas? Should that be the same when it's lit or not lit? You see where I'm coming from? So that's the sort of work we'll be doing as well. And then the very last one, but possibly not least, we've put in a bid for a Bus Back Better with the government, and that really is about, it's a way in which we want to get people back onto public transport. We've not been able to afford to subsidise much of our bus routes in recent years. It's something we would like to get people back onto buses, but in order to get people back onto buses, we really do need to convince people, one, there is going to be regular, more frequent buses on good bus routes. And if we need to get people back on there, there's a number of ways of doing that. One is providing that. The two, we want to provide the better buses so that they're as carbon neutral as possible. But also we want to get not only our young older people who tend to use the bus when they can, but we want to get our younger people back on the buses, back into that sort of routine of believing buses are back and they're a good usage. So looking at potentially young people's scheme for subsidised fares for the youngsters. That doesn't mean the under 16s, but that will mean beyond 16. So, I mean, and that's all part of, we're trying to get better outcomes, better quality roads and pavements. We want to try and reduce those local flooding. Drainage is obviously is something that we are trying to tackle and looking to see what we can do budget-wise. Reduce our numbers of casualties, obviously, through our road safety. Less pressure on our revenue, obviously. Reduce levels of complaint, please. My inbox could do with them going down every day. Improve resilience to the climate change, and that links up to the local flooding, and be able to have visible action on the network to respond. We are constantly pressured with the amount of work with queries. In fact, actually queries around what hasn't been done can actually take so much time out. It takes out the time to actually respond, to actually do anything about it. So it's a little bit of a vicious circle at the moment. So, thank you. Questions?
Thank you very much for that great report, and I'm sure we'll have a few questions. Councillor Amos, I believe, has got a question.
What indicators make speed limits go up? Because I quite understand why they go down, but what indicators make them go up so we can go faster in our cars?
I'm sorry, I'm trying to get the point of that one. It's really difficult to hear. Firstly, I heard about indicators to get us to go down, but not to go up. I didn't quite get that.
The question was, what indicators would allow you to raise a speed limit rather than reducing one?
Not a lot at the moment. I'll be brutally honest, there's not a lot. Why would we want our speed limits to go up particularly at the moment? Unless you're on national highways, because obviously I don't look after national highways.
Well, if you can go faster, you can get from A to B quicker and can save time. I'm just wondering, is there sort of any indicators that mean in a B road, for example, you raise the speed limit? Because I know that a lot of people come along to these meetings and they say people are driving too fast, blah, blah, blah. But what would make you go, okay, in this instance, we'll put the speed limit up?
So, for example, the speed limit has gone up, actually, interestingly, on the A2300, but that became a dual carriageway. That's when why the speed went up. So it was deemed safe enough for the speed to go up. I would say to you that in many cases, that actually the roads and the size of the roads, and the numbers of cars are currently on the road, and the people who want to use the roads, there's not many instances I can think of, but I'm perfectly happy to be proved wrong, I can tell you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, Councillor Bennett has a question for you.
Hello, Joy. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can. Yes, loud and clear.
Great. Thank you for your update. It's all really encouraging, really good to hear. I just want to talk to you about something in the here and now. And I'm pretty sure that my residents are going to be watching this because this is a really important thing for them. And I feel like I've had a lot of sleepless nights because I feel I've really let them down. Over a year ago, I promised them that they would have their roads resurfaced. And the roads I'm talking about is Woodlands Road and the roads off of it around Stone Quarry and a tiny little close called Blenheim Close on the Lancaster Drive estate, where only 15 houses are situated. And the road is so bad that they can barely get out of their road to be able to join our networks. And it's just not fair on them. I realise that we have to prioritise busy major roads, but this is now really impacting on their livelihoods, being able to get out and about. and I can't hold my head up anymore. And so I'm asking you, am I going to have to wait until March next year, or will you make the promise, like your predecessor, to bring it forward and to do these works as soon as possible?
Well, you said something interesting there, to promise to bring it forward like my predecessor. Well, obviously it didn't come forward, did it? I have been in correspondence about Blenheim Close, interestingly, and I've been asking when will it be done, given the fact that it appeared to have been on the schedule to be done in September. I have to tell you, I have not had a response yet, and I'm awaiting response still, but as soon as I get one, I will let you know, Liz. And I will chase.
Just to follow up and explain, our contractors were due to carry out the work, and each time they've gone to start and then decided to go to another area. So it was actually promised for summer this year, and it didn't happen. Then it was promised for September, it didn't happen. Then it was promised for November, it didn't happen. And now it's been promised for March. And it's just not fair. And I cannot give my residents a proper reason why.
Let me find out. I've asked, gone back and said, why has it been, I've asked a question, why has it been delayed twice? And when are we expecting to go out, given the fact we've already delayed twice?
Okay, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question from Councillor Bell. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Joy. And actually, I'd 100% support Councillor Bennett's comments just now. I know what's happened with Woodlands Road and Blenheim Close, and it's just not fair. It really isn't fair. For instance, even yesterday, I had residents talking about that. I just wanted to, I'm glad you mentioned pavements, Joy, in the outcomes, but I've been trying to follow up, as an example, with some pavements in the A22, where we've had 2 people fall over and really hurt themselves, and where a mobility scooter sort of judded and nearly had a nasty accident by hitting some potholes in the pavement. But the understanding I have is that the pavement rules for potholes are exactly the same as the road rules for potholes. And obviously it's much easier to trip on a shallower pothole when you're walking or on a mobility scooter than it is when you're in a car. And so at the moment, no planned works are forecast for those pavements, because even though we've now had 3 accidents, we're still not meeting them sort of the national threshold for pavement sort of potholes. So I just wondered if there was any way that can be looked at. Second one, or as a general principle.
Sorry, John, is that in the same, more or less the same place, the 3 accidents?
Yeah, all on the A22, but going from Woodbury Avenue to Sackville School. And the second one was just more general points again about hedges encroaching. I know we're quite good at sort of trimming them off at the top, but over time, as they get older, quite often they sort of come out into the pavements. And I'm not quite sure what the process is for checking on those. And I'm hearing quite a lot of stories of kids sort of being forced out into the road, or people having to walk out to the road where the hedges have encroached out into the pavement more. And what do you think we can do about that? And then thirdly, as always, I know as mine, our inboxes get full in the summer over the grass cutting. And I wondered whether there was any possibility, or whether you were thinking about moving on to a sort of performance-based contract, where grass is kept below a certain level, for example, because it's an absolute nightmare trying to determine who owns various verges, sort of, privately owned.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a difficult one. And in fact, I've given a challenge to Beams to say to it, go round to the parishes and the town councils and talk honestly about the grass verges.
Yeah, okay, so if you've got any comments on that.
And actually think about what really needs cutting and what doesn't, or only needs partial cutting, especially with the success of We Had No May was very successful in many of our locations. But obviously we need safety as well, so we need displays to be safe. So it's actually determining what needs cutting and how many times. But obviously we have a contract in play where they've got to get round the county and suddenly the weather, the weather can be dry for months and nothing happens, and then suddenly it rains and sunshine for 3 weeks, and as it did in August, and it goes absolutely mad, and to expect them to get around the whole county the next following week is pretty difficult, as we know, and they need to prioritise the safety issues. You're right, it's a really difficult contract to think about, that one, and we have gone to a different basis, and we will be re-evaluating it at the end, before the next year. Hedges is a really good one as well, because it depends on who owns the hedge. And it's all about those, that famous word that gets bandied around, riparian duties. I know for a fact I've had a recent case, well, two, very recent, one about trees and one about hedges, and actually about who owns them and who's responsible for them. Again, it's a difficult one. There's no way that I can provide highway stewards to walk around the streets of East Grinstead along with every other place and sort of start noting whose hedge it is and telling them to go and cut their hedge. I mean, they can do it, but only when it's pointed out by residents. So if the residents actually report it, as for example I had in Burgess Hill recently, they reported the hedge. We found out, ascertained who owned the hedge. One of the highway stewards went round and said, is your responsibility to do. They had a bit of a whinge, but to be brutally honest, they then went and did it. So and then we've had situations where it's actually our responsibility and we've gone out and done it. So it really depends on whose responsibility it is. It is. And sometimes when you've got a hedge backing up onto a major road like the 22, for example, they tend to do, homeowners often do the inside of their own gardens, but forget their responsibilities on the other side. Very difficult. And again, we need to work with our parishes and our town councils.
Thanks, Jo. And just on pavements?
So can I just say, so if you do have an issue like that, report it on West Sussex. And at least then you might get a feel, an understanding of who actually owns that piece of land, and whose hedge it is, and therefore whose responsibility. Right, okay, and the last one was the pavements, wasn't it? Interesting. I think that when you have 3 accidents in pretty well the same place, it is telling you something, isn't it? I assume they've been reported.
Jackie Russell, Councillor Russell got the highways officer to go down and have an inspection, and the highways officer inspection said there was no action to be taken because they're below pothole. Below
the threshold. I'll talk to Jackie afterwards and we'll have a chat with that officer and just ask why he thought that was the case.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we have another question from Councillor Mockford.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Joy. I'm just with my East Grinstead in Bloom hat on, really. Have West Sussex got an active tree planting programme up and running?
Yes, we do. We obviously have a number of tree programmes in play at the moment. A budget and biggest priority, as you can probably appreciate, is ash dieback, which is probably the opposite of East Grinstead in Bloom. But it is taking its toll on our county, as you're probably aware. But we do have some tree planting going on. Off the top of my head, I'd have to check, but we are doing some planting, particularly given the Queen's Platinum Jubilee and the tree canopy that we're looking to do. We're also very much encouraging parishes and town councils to do their own bit as well. I don't know whether you guys are.
Always planting trees, Joy. It's just that looking at your list on the screen, 2 of the problems that you've got could easily be solved by planting trees. That is, of course, flooding and climate change.
Climate change, one of them. I wouldn't say it would also always, the flooding, I wouldn't say that was necessarily the case. Some of the examples of flooding I see are actually to do with surface water off the roads into people's homes, actually. So I don't think a tree would have helped in those cases.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that's all the questions we have for now. So thank you very much for that fantastic report and answering all those questions. And hopefully we can have you back next year for another report. So thank you very much.
Pleasure. I shall leave you now.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Can you stop
Bye.
sharing, please, Joy?
Yeah, I will do.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to police matters, I believe we have Sergeant Boyd on Zoom. So hopefully
hello, can you hear me all right?
We can hear you, but please do talk up. You're quite faint.
I do apologise. I'm as close to the microphone as possible. Is that a bit better?
A little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Press play up. Press up.
I am on a Zoom meeting with you, so I'm not sure whether you can see me or not. I can see everyone beautifully.
So we can't see your camera, no, Paul, but that's fine.
Yeah,
So please, please carry on.
okay, when I do try and go onto the camera, it says I don't have the access to it. But anyway, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for having me be involved in your meeting this evening. I listened to all the conversations, and it's very interesting to hear, and I appreciate all the feedback from the partners and the people we actually also work with. For anyone that doesn't know me, my name is Paul Voigt. I am the Sergeant for Neighbourhood Policing for East Grinstead and Mid Sussex, which is a big old area, and I'm very happy to be here. So sometimes you ask me just to start rattling off about things we've done, and sometimes it's just questions. So it's really up to you what you'd like me to discuss.
If you could tell us about some of the things you've done, some of the feedback you've had, or some of the results you've had recently, especially about the use and throwing things off the pedestrian bridges over the Beeching Way, that would be good, so we could have an update on that. And anything else?
Certainly. I only wish my camera was working so you could see my face, so that because the questions you ask, I knew you would ask. And I'm also not in uniform, and I was so proud about that because it's a rest day today. But anyway, yes. All right. So the things you're doing, Sussex Police neighbourhood policing team covering East Grinstead is a passionate little team. We do care very much about the work we're doing. We are encountering issues and different hazards along the way, but we are doing our best to do what we can to make a difference. So if I had to look at some of the things we've been doing, we've started our beat surgery, so we're trying to get more communication amongst our communities and get feedback and get information. We are also, we've been working on a number of initiatives this year, such as Obscepta, which has been the 9th crime in East Grinstead, well, the whole of Sussex, but we've specifically been working on Obscepta recently. We've also got, we've been working on our community speed watch, and I remember the last meeting I attended, a gentleman asked me about the speed watch. And so we've been doing quite a bit of that, working with the community support workers, not community support workers, community speed wardens, especially along the A22 in East Grinstead. And the partnership work between us and the folks that are looking after the roads has been really good. We've also been working, obviously we've had all our bonfire nights, we've had the East Grinstead parade, which was super, thank you very much for that. We all love being there, the ones that were. We've also set up an initiative in Sussex Police called Immobilise, which is a national property register. And these little points that I'm discussing are visible on the Sussex Police website. So I will mention them, but please, I think there's a lot on that site that may help. So Immobilise, National Property Register, that helps get things that have been stolen from people's houses and burglaries returned to them. And that's one of the incentives. The other one we've been working on is Street Safe, where you can anonymously report places where you feel unsafe because of environmental issues such as bad street lighting, or there's yobs standing on the corner and you don't like it, or there's something to do with antisocial behaviour. It is an anonymous reporting system. It's, again, that's on the Sussex Police website, and you can go into that, and essentially it sends an email off to whoever's going to be able to read it for you. So those are some of the good things we're doing. We've had a tough time as well. I won't deny that. There has been instances. We kind of came out of the COVID, out of lockdown, where we got to a stage where there was no one out in the streets, and then the next day it seemed like the streets were infested with people. And I'm probably a little bit behind speaking to you about this because I've missed 2 of your meetings through either being on leave or working. But we sort of walked out from not having an awful much to do to suddenly loads to do. And one of the things, perhaps it's a little bit of a result of people being sat at home for months and months and not being able to get out, is that some of the kids have now started to become more involved in antisocial behavior, and it just seems to be more noticeable. So probably a primary example of that was the issues we had with the bridges in East Grinstead. Now, these activities that were taking place, I think it was sort of very near Halloween when that reared its head. And the issues with that were that individuals were doing antisocial behavior in the town, probably quite late at night, sometimes during the evening, so it's hard to say. Doing antisocial behavior, running around, lobbing eggs at people's cars and stuff, and then going onto the bridges and chucking things off the bridge, which immediately, obviously, sent massive alarm bells ringing, because the dangers in throwing a brick or a trolley or a skip, not a skip, sorry, if someone's really been off a bridge, doesn't bear thinking about. So I must say, apart from the police response, working with the council and the highways, we all got together and we did something about it as soon as we could, as it was a priority. Since then, fingers crossed, there hasn't been any incidences, and I'm hoping it stays like that. To try and sort it out, the main sort of offending bridge, if I could put it that way, or the 2 bridges are the ones where the King's Centre are, or is, next to the play park. The one leads down across to the High Street, and the other little bridge leads to the side road next to the King's Centre. Both had trees sort of covering them and bushes and things, so if you went onto the bridge, you weren't really seen going on there to do something like they were. And it was darker, and the CCTV camera, which is located at the King's Centre, couldn't really pick them up too well because of the lighting and because of the bushes. And so with the partners, we did what we could with that. The offending branches and things were cut away. The lighting is being worked on. We also have ensured that CCTV camera now covers the bridge. And we've also gone onto social media. We've sent out letters to the schools and gone and seen the schools and delivered advice about the children's behavior. I think with the ASB, personally, I need the help of the schools and getting that, because they're the ones that can get the message through at the root cause of the problem. My officers and myself, we kind of are trying to do what we can in relation to prevention, by contacting the schools, by sending letters to people, by using social media as a platform to let people know what we're doing. The King Centre itself has had ASB issues there, which has been a real pain. And a lot of that is actually something that the King Centre itself could do something about, and they have started to do that. So closer to the park, if you don't know the King Centre car park and where the gym is and the leisure centre, please accept my apologies. But essentially, there's a small conference wing that is near the park, which is near the bridge, and kids congregate there at night and they smoke or do drugs. So the King Centre, on our advice of putting in lighting there, they're putting in, they've also cut back some of the branches and things. Our camera does cover there now. So that's the King Centre, that's the car park and the bridges that we've been working on. The other thing that there's, apart from ASB, vehicle crime is a problem. A lot of the offences with vehicles being stolen and motorbikes being stolen take place in the early hours of the morning. So myself and my team, we're not there then. So what we have to do is we have to create briefing pages for other officers, traffic officers, etc. that work later. We are communicating to them to get their patrols out later at night for us. And we are sharing intelligence with Kent Police and Surrey Police, which has been very helpful and beneficial to us because traditionally sharing of information was a little bit slower between our various forces. So we've made a concerted effort to improve that. So if an individual gets their car stolen in East Grinstead, by liaising with Kent or Surrey, very often we are able to find the vehicle and sometimes the offender just through sending an email and then being aware. So communications improved. We're looking at the vehicle crime. Are there any questions at the moment? I'm conscious I may be rambling on.
No question. Councillor Whitaker has questions.
Sorry, Chair. Thank you, Paul. I don't know if you can hear me. You mentioned, thank you for the report. You mentioned about social media, and up until about 4 months ago, your Twitter account was really active. And I know Darren used to do it, and it was really useful. He did 1 or 2 posts a night, a day, and it really showed what you were doing, and it was really graphic form of communication. That seems to have stopped now, for whatever reason, and it would be good if somebody could take on that responsibility if you're allowed by.
I appreciate that 100%, and I have started posting more. I'm quite a reserved individual, and media platforms and social media is rather new to me, but I do post when I can. A lot of the times, if we come in on a shift, there's been a lot of issues in other parts of Mid Sussex as well, which you may not see because we post stuff about, for instance, like something happening in Burgess Hill and things, and sometimes, and I can't stand it because I'd love to be in East Grinstead every single shift, but sometimes I start my shifts and it's all happening in Burgess Hill or it's all happening in Sussex, and I have to be there, which is frustrating. So sometimes I'm not there to post stuff about what's happening directly. The Mid Sussex Police account, I am encouraging my PCSOs to do that, to post about East Grinstead and what's going on. But I certainly will pick up the mantle from Darren. I'm not going to go into why he's not on Twitter or anything like that, but I'm there and I will do the best I can. And I really appreciate you saying that because I think it's so important that it helps us to be transparent with not only you folks, but the whole community. And I do encourage the community to report things to the police. Obviously, on a social media account, I'm not the person to report something to. So if they do get some good intelligence or some information that would help us to deal with your problems there. They still need to report it. But I'm still very happy to see what people say. And it's amazing the things I can pick up on and use. So thank you for that. And I'll pick up the mantle.
Thank you
You
for
can't
that.
see me smiling. I hate this. I'm speaking into a microphone and it's awful. I'm smiling.
Councillor Belsey has a question for you.
Thank you, and hi Paul, nice to
Hi.
speak. Just regarding those bridges, I think one of the things that from my perspective was really difficult to understand as a councillor is when people are approaching is just how many incidents there were. People share, as we mentioned, social media, people share from various pages, people share, they put things in their own words. You're not quite sure if this is a new incident or an old incident, and it would be really helpful if one of the things you were able to do was to do some sort of factual factual updates, or when there has been an incident, just to let us know on whatever platform, but maybe social media. It's just otherwise, I think people are very fearful anyway. But just having more facts from police would be really helpful. And just secondly, you've just mentioned obviously CCTV, lighting, trees, speaking with the schools, etc. So obviously going forward, we might hope that the incidents will be reduced. I know there obviously with court cases and things, you can't talk about specifics, but I know you did also say, or someone said at one point, that you thought you were closing in on maybe the people responsible. And I was just wondering whether that's still something that is an ongoing thing, that you are still indeed looking to catch the perpetrators from those previous incidents. Thanks.
No worries. Thanks. I really appreciate what you asked there, especially the idea of putting something a little bit more factual out on social media to confirm things, because there is a lot of false news. I can't bear looking at some of the comments and some of the things that come up onto social media, because things get blown out of proportion. People blame they blame the police for not doing something, or they blame the council, or they blame someone, but they actually don't really know what they're talking about sometimes. And those that do make sensible comments and are really helpful. So what I'll say, sir, is that I'll make sure that we do that. That's not a problem at all. It's actually a very simple thing to do. As far as I know, there were 3 incidents on the bridges. One would think that every night and day people were chucking stuff off there from what was going on to social media, but there were 3 incidences, and they sort of varied the ante up to a little bit as each incident occurred. In relation to your question about where we are with these individuals, no, I can't really talk about it on a public platform. I will say that I'm working with the schools, because it's a couple of different schools, in relation to the suspects for those instances. A couple of the people that are involved are coming from other counties, so there's a lot of I can't think of the word. It's quite an involved process to sort this out. Yes, there are people involved. We know who some of the people were involved, but I can't really talk about it any further.
Well, just to remind you that this recording of this meeting will go on our YouTube channel, so I think you're probably best to leave it where you have.
Thank you. Councillor Amos has a question for you.
Thank you for coming along this evening. I was doing some research into the crime figures, and I found that in Town Ward, which is my ward, in 2019, the number of crimes committed per month was 64.916 in 2019, and it's now an average monthly this year in 2021, 63.90. Do you think that reduction in crime of about 1 crime per month represents good value for money, given we've got additional PCSOs? Because it doesn't look like the biggest reduction to me, given we've got 4 new PCSOs.
Councillor Amos, every single time I come to these meetings, you ask me a question around that, and I can't answer you because that is way above my pay grade, and it's not something I deal with. I'm a neighborhood policing sergeant. We deal with what's happening on the streets in your town. I can't answer whether you're getting value for money from the people that are from the evidence on those statistics. I apologize, but I can't. I wouldn't give you the right information. So no, I can't answer that.
Thank you for being honest.
Thank you for answering that one. I'm personally, as a chair of public services, and I'm hopefully many other people here, we appreciate the PCSOs being here, and we appreciate the fact that the people of East Grinstead actually see people from the police, whether it be PCSOs or police officers, on the streets and doing a job and making East Grinstead feel a safer place, whether that just be, whether it's a 1% small reduction in crime rate or what. I think what's more important is how people feel about their presence and how it makes them feel. So you're coming, Councillor Amos is coming from a tax point of view, we're coming from I personally am coming from how it makes the town feel, and I think that
over results. Don't results matter more than how people feel? Sorry to interrupt.
That is fine. Have you been out and surveyed the people of East Grinstead to find out how they feel, and do they feel any better this year to 2019-20?
I don't really care how they feel. I was looking at the crime statistics that the policemen gave us, and they showed it's a very small reduction. To be fair to them, it's more than 1%. It's probably about 5 or 6%. And well done if they've made a difference to that.
I think what we also need to factor in is the fact that people of East Grinstead will hopefully feel safer and have a better feeling about it, which is and the fact that they can call on the police for it. One thing I would ask though is that, and please tell me if I'm wrong, self-employed, but I think that we need to stop using social media as a way of informing people about an incident. Right, it needs to be used for informing people, not to try and contact the police. I think we should still use 999 and 101 to contact the police when there's an incident happening, rather than put it on social media. I think social media should be there to inform rather than, that's just my thoughts. But I do see a lot on social media people telling it about what's going on rather than reporting it. So I have, has anybody else got any other questions? No? Simon Boyd, do you have any further things to report or?
I'm just having a look at my notes quickly. No, I don't have anything else to report at the moment.
Okay, fantastic. Well, we thank you very much for coming in on your rest day. We really do appreciate it. And we appreciate everything you and your team are doing. So thank you for that. Thank you very much. And we look forward to seeing you hopefully at another meeting soon.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 9 now, consultation. This is to note the Gatwick consultation. This is just for noting. So,
Noted, Chairman.
Community reports update. So this is from Alice. So Alice, do you want to, thank you very much for coming this evening. Do you want to go through anything in your reports and say a few things, or do you want to go straight to questions?
Thank you, Chair. No, just straight to questions, I think.
Fantastic.
Do you not have something you need to update on? I can start a report.
Oh, yeah, okay. So that was regarding the SID report. We analysed the data that we got from the snapshot when it was on Herentide Drive and Hurst Farm Road. And the conclusion was that drivers in East Grinstead were almost twice above the national average in compliance to the speed limit at 81% compared to 44%, but also over double the national average in non-compliance at 15% compared to just 6%.
So you don't get Not if Councillor Amos had his one.
So overall, I think that is telling us that a small proportion of people are speeding, but the speeding is not excessive. About 1% of speeding was 40 to 50 miles an hour during those times. Yeah, so that was the SID report there, and then, yeah, any questions, please?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Alice. Just on the SID report, I think our usual practice is to share that information with the local action team. I don't know if that is still the current seat of town clerk. But obviously they're integrally involved in the local speed watch, particularly Hurst Farm Road, where one of the main members lives.
Yeah, I don't know that we share with the
Or
direct data, but Alice is now involved with the LAT. She
You
gets
do,
their
you do.
information.
Okay, that's all I
and
need to know.
passes it backwards and
Yeah.
forwards. So
Thank you.
obviously what we ask the LAT really for is where do they want the way they think the SID should be placed along with councillors and activation. So yes, Alice is.
Okay.
Yeah, we've shared the conclusions, and but we're not sharing the full data.
No,
but we've
okay.
shared the conclusions if they want more data.
Thank you, and I'd just like to thank you and all the council staff for the two big community projects. Obviously, we had Remembrance Parade, where effectively the town council were in the JV with Royal British Legion, effectively taking over it, and also the Beaverville, which again was another massive success.
And I'd like to add to that the half-term bits as well.
Yeah, so thank you for that.
To go down, so well done.
Thank you, will do.
Any further questions? Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you. You found that 90% of rubbish that you collected in King George's Field, I believe, was from McDonald's, and you contacted McDonald's. Why did you contact McDonald's?
Because I wanted to have a discussion with them about whether there was anything they could do to help improve their rubbish. And I know it's not their responsibility once a customer leaves site. I think that's where you're coming from. But you know, if there's anything, any kind of campaigns they might do, like when they hand out the food, please remember to put your rubbish in the bin, or if there's anything that they were willing to do. I haven't actually heard back from them, and I've chased a few times, so yeah, I haven't really got anywhere with that. But
if I can just add to that, the eateries, food, takeaways, what have you, they do have a community responsibility, and part of that is in their licensing conditions. So if rubbish is being directly caused by their patrons not being responsible, then they are expected to engage to help us to get the message across, i.e. use the bin. So that is indeed something they are required to do.
But Mr. Chairman, isn't it the case that they're only required to do that because you say, well, we're not going to allow you to set up business if you don't accept these conditions that are part of the licence?
I don't do anything, it's been Sussex District Council for licensing, but yes, I presume to agree, you're right, that those are the conditions that have been accepted by the business.
Forced upon them in order to operate. But anyway, it sounds reasonable what you were saying.
Chairman, just coming on that relevant point, I think they're just trying to be a responsible, very successful local business, which they are, very successful, very busy. A similar point with the traffic management that they often do on the London road, because it queues back and it's dangerous for motor road.
Yeah.
Right, and I think that's an excellent point that you picked up, Alice, for just to make them acutely aware, because it causes me and loads of people in the town extreme annoyance. When I walk into the town up from Felton, I'm constantly picking up McDonald's packets and bags that have been thrown out of cars onto the road.
I just think it should be remembered that it's not McDonald's fault. Like, we should point at the voters and say to the voters, it's your fault. Now, I know that's not as popular as pointing at a big American corporation going, it's your fault, but it's not McDonald's fault. It's our voters' fault. They're to blame. They're the problem.
Councillor,
Do
I
you hear
don't
that?
think where any of us are pointing the finger at McDonald's, but I think we all have a social responsibility to pick up our own rubbish and take it home with us.
Yeah.
But if a big corporate company can use their powers of persuasion, just how they can you get the powers of persuasion to eat at McDonald's, then I think we should be doing everything we can to tidy up not only East Grinstead but the rest of the country as well. So yeah. Okay, I think we'll move on from that one.
There was just, Alice, there was just a little aside about McDonald's. They did, when they first opened, actually employ somebody to go out and litter pick their own litter. I don't know if that still happens, but I'm quite happy to.
Oh, yes, please. I haven't got anyone contacting them, so that'd be appreciated.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
Any further questions? No? Okay, I would like to thank you for everything you're doing and everything you've done and all the hard work you're putting into all the events, and we look forward to the hopefully one in February next year, and we'll get that lined up. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 11, e.g. health networks and QPH. There was a report in sent out, so I hope you've all read that. This is just for noting.
So if I just make a comment on the vaccinations, I'm involved as a volunteer on that with many others, including the Lions. In accordance with the government policy of the boosters, they will be accelerating. They're working 7 days a week now and have been for the last few weeks. And they are expanding their facility in accordance with the national requirement.
Good use of the old.
It's a fantastic thing, so it's very well received.
Yeah. We encourage everybody who wants them to go and get them.
And I can categorically say that so many younger people now, and the younger profile are coming in their schools, which is really good to see.
Could you just mention the street lights at the front? Because I think that was directly relevant to the vaccination centre, wasn't it? People struggling to see.
It was, and that's something else we picked up with Evolve Estates. That there are 6 private street lights there, and was picked up by people that were coming out of the vaccination centre from after 5 o'clock. And whilst Evolve Estates have gritted the public highway, I think, but the lights aren't working. So I think they're going to have to take a new electric supply from the retail show. That's what it looks like.
Right.
So they're on it, and Tony Clark and I are chasing them.
Thank you for doing that. Appreciate that. Okay, so moving on to update on rough sleepers and the survey. Do we have any full results?
I haven't had the results of the Sussex District Council, I'm afraid. I'm aware that Councillor Carino did say that he was aware that there were 3 people who were currently sleeping rough sofa serving room in town. And I'm sure that has been fed through. But so on the day, despite, various members of staff, we did early morning and late night checks, and we weren't aware of sleep. So our return was a nil return, but we are one of many others who report back in. But as soon as I get it, I'll let you know. I got a chase up from them, and I said, well, I've already responded. And then they came back and said, oh, yeah, sorry about that. And they haven't as yet provided us with, but it will be coming soon. I'll circulate it.
Thank you.
Sorry, Sharon, and Tony Clark, but just coming on that particular point, are you referring to the district council?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I should know this, but is there somebody responsible for that and a procedure in place? I'm sure there is, yes. But a lot of the members of the public asked me about that, particularly because 2 of the people that I've witnessed regularly are in Queen's Walk and are very close to the vaccination centre, and obviously there's hundreds of people coming through every day.
If we become aware of somebody who is sleeping rough, then we must give them some advice. But the best advice that we would give would be to refer them to the Sussex District Council. They work in partnership with Turner Tides, and Turner Tides will come out, the street mate, they'll come out and they will actually directly engage. So but if anybody does refer something to us and asks us to pass it to the district, more than happy to do so. We need to know where they are, roughly when they're there, and a really good description of the person. And if we can pass on names, then better. But if we can pass that information through to the district, then they will ensure that when Turner Tides come out, and they're pretty good at doing it, especially in this weather. Although having said that, the district have started their emergency protocols for the bad weather at the moment anyway. So anybody who is eligible and approaches our district for support will potentially be put into temporary accommodation at the moment because obviously the weather has turned. But a lot of it, but when it's more when it's slightly better weather, they'll get to them quite quickly and engage with them. It's to a large degree, it's this problem, and you probably remember we had the update a year or so ago from the homelessness team that really through how all this works. But they have to go through the process of are they with Sussex's responsibility or not. We have got the open house open Crawley, so there are lots of ways of helping. It does require a specific request or prepared to engage from the person who's sleeping rough. And one of our regular rough sleepers actually does his own home in the town, and he has problems, but he does have his own property, and as a result, he's not able to be helped by Mid Sussex. They give lots of support,
Yes, sure.
but they obviously can't be
Okay.
counselling. But yeah,
So,
there is a
as long as
procedure.
people are aware of the procedure, so.
Alice and the team are happy to refer through if they arrive at the library, but desk. Of course, they also can go to the health point at the library, and we'll go through.
I don't know, it's this time of year, so, okay, so I can answer.
Thank you.
Just one second, Alice, would you like to ask that?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to add that Turning Tides are the outreach programme that come into East Grinstead, and they have been fantastic. They've been in town every week for the last month, looking for people who need support. Residents, if any of your residents are asking what to do, go onto StreetLink and log where they've seen the person with the descriptions. That gets through to Turning Tides. They then send an outreach person. Our link is Tracy or Sally. They come and have a look. So unfortunately, as Town Clerk said, we didn't have any spotting anyone on that specific night, but there are 4 gentlemen that we are aware of that are super rough in the area, 2 of which have actually had help and outside of Mid Sussex now, one of which has an offer of help, but he's not in a position to take it at the moment, but he knows that it's there, so he's being offered all of the support that he can get. And so yeah, so along with the housing needs team and Mid Sussex as well, East Grinstead's actually fantastic support in terms of getting a hot meal every day of the week. There is availability for a hot meal if it is needed, from the Jubilee Centre, from Trinity's Church, Stone Quarry Cafe, and St Swithin's. There is a lot of support out there, and you know, we have got that information at the library, and we are telling people to come in there if they need anything, and we can give them information and talk through where they can get some support as well, along with systems advice that are in the library as well.
That's a brilliant answer. Thank you. Thank you. I just want, is that information on the website, or can it be on the Town Council website? Some shape or form.
Sure.
It isn't as such, but I've got a document I could share somehow.
I think we've got that information. Yeah, it's not necessarily shared. We definitely have a document anyway. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what we can do.
Is that something we could, once on the website or something else, we could send them via Facebook, or one of our social media platforms, that people that East Grinstead can get access to it?
Yeah, we're very a bit careful not to take over the role of the district council.
Of course, not so it comes to us, but so that
a simple reference, I think.
We definitely had something on the website after we had the visit from the homeless people a couple of years ago. Obviously, we've updated the website since, so I'm not sure, because we're not sure exactly what was there. So we'll have a little look, see what we can do, and we'll get.
So people were aimed at the right point of contact rather than coming here.
I mean, all that information is on the Mid Sussex website.
Fantastic.
I think we've got a link.
Councillor,
thank you. You said one of the rough sleepers has his own property. Why is he not in his own property? I'm sure there's an explanation for this.
I don't know, I'm afraid.
And he's being helped by the district council despite the fact he has his own property.
He can't.
Well, he makes up 25% of the cases, so it's actually quite a significant
The gentleman
concern.
has been interacted with, but the district council cannot assist him through their homeless team because he's not actually homeless. But they are giving him advice and help for some of the other problems.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions? No? Fantastic. Okay, moving on to item 13, LC Whip. Councillor Odie, is he here to give us an update?
It's been a while.
Sorry, Councillor Odie.
Yeah.
I'm moving up the list.
That's okay, it's no problem. Come to the pub. So, yeah, I'm here to give the committee an update on the LC Whip. For those of you who don't know, the LC Whip is a local cycling and walking infrastructure plan. It's a key document in informing the planning authority of their local plan, and it provides guidance for developers on providing safe, accessible, connected, people-centred neighbourhoods for homes and business. It ensures full linkage with the wider town cycle network and formally evaluated walking routes as well. It places the movement of people as a priority and the enablement of the community to walk and cycle safely. The plan encompasses government guidelines on cycling infrastructure as well, which is called the LTM 120 for all of those geeks out there, and the government's newly published document called Geek Change. Now, in June 2019, Mid Sussex confirmed they'd be proceeding with the whip for East Grinstead alongside ones for Havertey and Burgess Hill as well. There are 5 stages to an LC whip planning process. Stages 1 and 2 comprise of fact find, feedback, desktop analysis. Stage 3 and 4 is the audit of the current walking and cycling infrastructure, and they conduct a feasibility study. And then stage 5 is the routes and work prioritisation and plan that's put in place. And the key requirements of the plan are that networks and routes are coherent, direct, safe, comfortable, and attractive. Now, the consultancy firm JPA was selected at the latter part of 2019, and obviously COVID hit a few months after that. The process has been slower than anticipated, because I mean, I've been reporting this. It seems like it's been slower than anticipated, but there's momentum building now as the consultancy firm have finished stage 1 and 2 of that process. In mid-November, the working group, the cycling and walking working group, which is part of this council, had a meeting alongside other stakeholders and there was a presentation by Ben Coleman from PGA Consulting to run through the progress so far, which was excellent, and it set the foundations really for the next stages. East Grinstead, fortunately, is in a more developed stage due to the town having the working group, the excellent community stakeholders as well, and it's developed surveys and community feedback for cycling and walking. One point to make is that the LC whip is not a document that goes out to the community for consultation. There'll be extensive engagement with stakeholder groups and the community as a whole, and coordinated by, that's going to be coordinated by a consulting firm alongside Mid Sussex and the working group as well. And so that particular engagement process is during stage 3 and 4, so coming up now. Once the LC whip is finished, it should then be put to the committee here for approval and then adopted by West Sussex County Council to be included in their new transport plan, which would take us up to 2036, I think. So on the 7th of December, myself and John, who's Cabinet Member for Environment for Mid Sussex, will spend a day with Ben from PGA to walk around the town and look at the number of areas that will be addressed by the LC whip, and I'll come back in 2022 with details of that progress. But I'm happy to take any questions.
Make sure we move your list now.
That's right.
Thank you, Councillor. Is anybody have any questions?
Just very quickly, Jim. So obviously I mentioned about the planning pipeline, particularly with the site allocation DPD over the next 2 years plus. Presumably your strategic discussions and JFA consulting will take all of that planning cognizance.
We included in
future planning.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Right.
Thanks, Chairman, and no, thank you to Councillor Roddy, who's been very proactive from the Town Council. I know he has in pushing to make sure that we move forward with the LC whip. I was only going to just highlight again, and this is just the vehicle that sets out our the vision of, I think it's next 10 years, and then obviously separately there's then the funding of that programme which follows. But just to emphasise again about the walking routes as well, it's so we won't be just developing cycle lanes, we're looking for better crossings around town, and a good example of that, which I haven't really particularly been focusing on, is, for example, say the roundabout between High Street and London Road, you know, going over to West Street and Ship Street, that doesn't always work very well, and so that's the type of thing as well that will be considered as part of the LC whip to see if we can get smoother flows. Cars, cycles, walk,
yes,
exactly. Which is what I know, which is what Councillor Roddy was saying, but just sort of trying to sort of turn that into something what it could actually visualise. It's those types of crossings and junctions that could be hopefully improved as well.
Anybody else have any questions? Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Thank you ever so much for your hard work on that and the thing you're doing. And we look forward to having you back here next year to give us more of an update. Thank you very much. Okay, this is just the noting about the public art project wayfinding and the station mural. That was in the then that'll be a nice addition to the town and a nice way to get out and about. So that's just for noting. Okay, so the date of the next public services meeting will be on Thursday, the 3rd of March 2022. But there'll be a brief meeting in January to set the budgets. Thank you for everybody's attended here and on Zoom. I close this meeting at 8:41. Stop.